All right, I'm teaching here up in Park City to Visium, or what I call them Vision. And I'm teaching a principle about negotiables and non-negotiables. So I have a non-negotiable that I cannot have sugar during the week. 2 nights ago, I have to come to the consensus and take accountability that I had a marshmallow. Because my little girls were like, hey, this is a little pineapple marshmallow. And I gave in, I had a bowl of cereal and a marshmallow. I was like, just this once. Or I owe $1,000 to Mallory, my office admin, if I have sugar during the week. So I've owned up 4 different times, 100% of the time, except 2 nights ago I didn't own up to it. So I was waiting till a moment where I was like, hey look, I'm going to own up to this and use this as an example of how is my relationship to my own non-negotiables, and what character do I have inside that's all that matters. Does that make sense? So I got to tag Mallory, and then I got to Venmo her $1,000.
That's a nice Venmo account.
So what I'm getting at is that marshmallow cost me $1,000. Why is it so important that I pay her the $1,000?
You're not accountable to yourself, who are you accountable to?
So I always wanted to lose weight. I always wanted to have a six-pack. I always wanted to, XYZ with health, right? But I also love my whoopie pies, and every freaking time you have cereal, it's gotta be 3 bowls, and you know what I mean? That is my life. I look at the action, and I look at my wants, and I look at so then I finally, I said, I'm not going to, hold on, I'm spending this right now. I'm not going to ever get a six-pack if I don't ever finally own up to the truth. Because in the thick of things, when I had a really hard day that day, and I was sitting there nothing was available for dinner, and go to the pantry, and I'm like, dude, that cereal looks really good. And then once I had the cereal, I was like, well, I already broke it, so I might as well have the marshmallow. It's when we are in the emotional state of instability that we make poor choices. When we're in a state like right now, you guys could write out the best goals, you could write out the best daily morning routine, you could write out the best. This morning I took a cold shower because I'm in a challenge where I have to take a 2-minute cold shower every morning. I contemplated not even showering this morning because I did not want to take a 2-minute cold shower. They suck. I could have been like, yeah, I did my cold shower, everybody. Or I could have said, I'm going to do the damn cold shower, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to do it. And if I didn't, I would have texted everybody and said, I chose not to do the challenge. I'm out. Does that make sense? The sugar. So, the point I'm trying to make is, if you guys practice in the off season, this is one of the coolest things. Josh Zuniga went from 300 accounts to 1,500 accounts in pest control. So he literally, it wasn't like, oh, I gotta go 300 to 400. Oh, I gotta go 400. His average day was probably 2 or 3 or 4 to do 300 accounts, right? Then next year he does 1,500 accounts. So can you do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what changed? Was he said, my association on the off season was he's lost 50 pounds. He hired a personal trainer to do meal prep planning. And he said, I correlated fitness in the doors. And then I said, and then he correlated relationship. He correlated his daily mornings. He correlated, but he said, I correlated the character building of my non-negotiables and my ability to not renegotiate with myself when emotionally I didn't want to do something. That is what I correlated to the ultimate success from going from 300 to 1,500. Does that make sense? So when I'm on a door and I'm getting my butt kicked in, or I'm having a day where I don't want to recruit, or I'm having a guy that's shifting me out of this mindset that I know that I've tried to constantly build my character outside, or when you have your biggest month and then you're ups and downs, is because you don't have a good relationship to your negotiables. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I remember I learned this principle, like, I trained for marathon this year. And I remember I'm in St. George, and it was the first time I'd ever run 10 miles. So I go on this thing, and I was like dying. It was a terrible idea. I started at the top of Snow Canyon and ran 5 miles down, and then 5 miles back up the hill. That was stupid. Like, I'm just like, why did I choose to go downhill first, right? So I'm on my way back, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go all the way to that sign without stopping. Like, I'm like dying, guys. Like, I'm straight up like hill. So so I set a pace. So I said, I'm going to set a pace, and I won't stop. And I'm negotiating that right now. Ran to the sign, and then I could stop. All right, I'm going to set a pace, and I'm going to run to that. And I'm not going to stop, like change my pace, no matter how hard it hurts. Ran to that. And I was like, wow, what an interesting thing, because a minute into this kind of jog, I'm sitting there going, oh, that was stupid, why would I do that? Like, okay, I'm actually killing it. Like, my legs really, really hurt. Like, I don't think I can breathe. And all of this constant self-talk is happening right now. I'm now renegotiating, literally 20 seconds after I made the deal, right? Like 20 seconds in, I'm like, no way. And I learned right there a very important principle about just how fast our minds can go. Boom, negotiate, get out of it, because it's uncomfortable. Same thing when it comes to a conversation when you're reaching out to your buddy, right? You're sitting there like, I don't want him to come off, so I better just not talk to him. It's like, no, I committed to talking to the guy, and I committed to full send. And if he just says no, and he thinks that I'm trying to come off this way, and I think he's just trying to make money on me, who cares? Because I made the commitment to do it. Does that make sense? Because you'll talk yourself out of having the conversation. Because I already negotiated with myself, I'm doing it. So if he ends up not buying in or whatever, I don't care. Because you're the one talking yourself out of success. Right?
That's true.
So the roadblocks that you have is also your own mental expectation to that. Does that make sense? I think every single one of you guys, I know every single one of you guys. Like, I don't even know how well you sold, I don't even know how many you sold this summer. I do know that Jared just puts out too, because he's just like a sprinter and not a marathon guy. I do know that you just admitted to that. I do know that some of you guys, that might have just been a cultural thing. Well, shame on you guys. Because you know you have more greatness in you. Because the worst thing that people can have is when they feel like they know there's more potential in them, and they know that they're not aligned with that potential. That's dissatisfaction in life. That's like an uncomfortable misalignment. It does not feel good. Does that make sense? And that should frustrate you. If it doesn't, then you're going to just complacently get through life. But knowing that you have a greater potential inside of you and chasing for that every day. And so this is how you get better. Ready? This is how you go from 4 to 5 to 6, 7. Because when I was training for a marathon, it was simple. I'd never run like 3-4 miles in my life. Like, it was like, that running sucked. Like, I don't know why I picked to run a marathon. So anyway, your Saturday runs, it was like, okay, run 4 miles on a Saturday, then run 5 miles on a Saturday, then run 8 miles on a Saturday, then run 9 miles on a Saturday, 10, 11, 12, and it got you all the way to a 21-mile run on a Saturday in the training program. But what was so cool about running, it was the direct correlation to instant personal records. Does that make sense? Like, it was so tangible, instant personal records every Saturday. I hit my PR again this Saturday. I'd never run 10. I wonder what it'd be like to run 11. Well, next Saturday we'll find out. It was like, and it was forced progression. Because regardless or not, March I was coming, and it was running a 26.2 mile race. Regardless or not. So if you put yourself in a situation where it's forced progression, where it's like, today is the day I do 5. Did you ever have a day where you just said, no matter what, I'm doing 5 just to hit a new PR? That was your problem. because you could have easily sold another one, but you just were satisfied with 4 because you felt like you were a 4 kind of guy. And Jordan Belfort came to Door Con. He was like, "Are you a 1 cooler guy? You used to sell meat." You guys know who Jordan Belfort is? The Wolf of Wall Street. That movie that they made.
Yeah, the song.
The song.
Dirty money, Jordan Belfort.
Yeah, Jordan Belfort. A song about
It
it.
was a movie, right?
Yeah.
Movie too.
So he came and spoke at Door Con, and he talked about he used to sell meat door to door, and he's like there were 1 cooler guys, 2 cooler guys, 3 cooler guys, 4 cooler guys. And what would happen is they would load up their truck with 1 cooler, and they would go out to the town and start selling their meat, and they get rid of their cooler, and then what happened? They go home. Why? Because the cooler's out of meat. Does that make sense? So I said, that would suck. You run out. And so he's like, the certain sales reps, they would pack a cooler, and they would go out and they'd get rid of their cooler of meat. And some of them would sell the whole cooler in 1 sale. Do you want to just buy the whole thing? Sure, why not? Sweet, made my job easy today. The problem is you guys don't carry a bunch of pest control accounts with you every day. You don't fill up the back of your truck with pesticides and you're like, I'll spray until I'm out of pesticide and then go home. But the same concept applies of like, did you wake up as a 2 cooler guy, a 3 cooler guy, or a 4 cooler guy? Who's to say you don't? I mean, the technicians are waiting for you to be a 5 cooler guy, I'm assuming. Maybe a 6. But you just woke up because you're a 1 cooler guy. You feel me?
Yeah.
Am I a 5? I can manage 5 reps. I want to recruit a team. And I'm a 5 account rep guy. Or I'm a 5 team guy. Who's to say you can't be a 50 team guy? Does that make sense? I'm going to bring 3 of my friends out. Why'd you say 3? What if you happen to load the truck with 6 coolers in the back? And what Jordan would do, he's like, dude, I'd bring he literally was like, I made 3 trips back home because I wasn't complacent with 1 truck. I wanted to go refill the truck, not just the cooler.